hockey friends and families around the world, and welcome back to another edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. This is going to be a dual mailbag episode with some extra topics. Let me tell you right away, my favorite people in the world are here with me, Mike Benelli and Christy Cascio Burns, to talk about an email that we got, a very interesting email that we got. Again, it's going to spawn an answer to the question in the email. And then it's also naturally going to lead us to talking about several other topics kind of surrounding that, which we're excited to do. So stay with us for the next 40 minutes. I think this is something that's going to apply to a lot of you. And for those of you who think it doesn't apply, it will at some point in the future. Okay, so the coolest part about this letter, which I have in front of me here, is it's coming from Sweden. So we always talk about our international audience. We've gotten an email here from Sweden. The three of us all got a little giddy when we said that. As always, the names have been removed to protect the innocent. But let me read this to you now to get into the episode. Okay. Hello, hockey friends. I like that. Thank you for saying that. I've been a regular listener of your podcast for over 2 years, and I've learned a lot from both you and your guests. Even the early episodes have been incredibly useful. A bit of context. I am a father of a 12-year-old boy who plays hockey here in Stockholm, Sweden. Like many kids, he dreams of becoming an NHL player. As you know, Swedish hockey development is different from the U.S. No tryouts or selections until around the age of 15 or 16, and kids are encouraged to stay with their original team while focusing on skating and having fun. We followed that path for 8 years before switching teams this season. My son plays at a level somewhere between strong AA and low AAA, though we won't label teams here that way. He moved teams on the advice of his coaches, who felt he needed a more challenging environment. He used to play defense because of his skating, but in the new team, he tried several positions and ultimately settled as a winger, which he loves. He started on the third line, but now he's considered one of the top 3 forwards on the team. He led in goals, assists, and accounts for about 70% of the team's shots over the last 3 months, confirmed by both coaches and parents. Here's my question or topic to discuss. How can a player who is already in the top few percent of their team continue to develop when there's no one above them to chase? My son is improving, but I worry that without stronger competition around him, he may slip into a comfort zone that slows his growth. Best regards from this person. First off, extremely well-written letter. Yeah. I think it's also important that we let our audience know that in Sweden, if he's saying his coaches have asked him to move, that's probably very true, right? Like this is not, I didn't take this letter as, oh, this guy thinks his kid's the best.
Yeah.
Like if he's writing this, it is probably true. So I want to set that context up for the audience. Because it's a really great question of, hey, my kid is really succeeding. I don't know if I can find the talent. What do I do? Right. Gang, where do we want to start?
You know, isn't this interesting that this is a universal dilemma? Because I think we've all been through that. You know, I can remember in the early days when my kids were showing some promise, their skills were a little bit more advanced than the others. Then you hear the whispers and you start to feel the pressure. Oh, they need to be off that house team. They need to be with better players. That's the only way they're going to grow. That's the only way they're going to get better, to be with players who know how to chase that puck better. The better coaches are at those higher levels. You hear that, but then you take a step back and it is a case by case basis. So, you know, look at the full picture. Is your kid in a place where they're developing? Because as we talked about so many times on this show, development is a process. It doesn't come instantly. Yeah, you want them challenged, but it's not such a bad thing to be the leader on your team. There are a lot of benefits to that. You're gaining confidence, more puck touches. You also can be a leader on that team, and kids around you, you can help elevate them. So I think you really have to carefully weigh what is the best placement for your kid where they're going to develop. Development is the key. What say you, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, development always. I mean, you're spot on as far as like what you need to do and the challenges as a parent when you have a player that seems to be progressing and people around you are saying they're progressing and you're seeing other players like, that player kind of moved on and they're doing much better in this other environment. But I think, you know, let's stick with I like the fact that he gave the age, right? Because I think and Sweden is a much different society as you know, as well as Finland and Norway and some of the other countries that are you know have to be in these different models, because like we've talked about in the past, Matt Dumichel was a great person to reference, and in the size of the organizations and the way they run their development. But like this is what we call back, this is like the Minnesota model. Like this is the model of community-based programming. Yes, your kid might play out of their group, but there's so many other attributes that come to play. And I think, Christy, one of the things I think that's a little different in these Scandinavian countries and Europe is that their best coaches aren't necessarily coaching the top teams.
Right.
They really value their best coaches coaching their beginner players, right?
Wow.
So I doubt that he's not getting good coaching.
Okay.
I think no matter where he's at, I bet you he's getting a certified, educated coach. I think, but the point of a 12-year-old boy is a 12-year-old boy.
Sure.
You have to gaining confidence, gaining a little swagger, being the big fish in the small pond at this age.
Right.
There's really nothing wrong with that, because the ultimate goal, like we've said this a million times, is to get him to be a 13-year-old phenom player.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I don't think, it doesn't sound like he's bored.
Right.
It doesn't sound like he's the best player on the team. He's progressing. So how do you keep progress happening? Hopefully great coaches identify that.
Yeah.
Hopefully he identifies that he's a better player and he can do different things and improve other parts of his game that maybe he wouldn't get to do if he was the lowest level player in a team.
Yes.
And I think I use the example a lot with parents, especially more in the 8 and 9-year-old, because that's where you see a big gap, right? In some of the kids is that you can't. The old adage used to be the best, you got to play against the best.
Right. I've heard that so many times.
And the problem is, if you never get to touch the puck or play, it doesn't matter if you're playing the best, because you're not going to get to touch the best.
Yeah.
Like they're like, oh, you can't get better unless you're with the best players.
Right.
That is more true at 22 years old
Right.
than it is at 11, 10, 11, 12 years old. But,
right. And you think about the brain of the 11, 12-year-old. If they're out there scoring goals, their brain is saying, oh, wow, I can score goals.
I like this.
Yeah.
I like this.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah. And if the player's not bored, again, I'll just use one example. I'll just use one story. Growing up, we had a kid on our team. He probably doesn't mind me saying who he is, but his nickname was Magic Burke. And Magic Burke was so good. He used to skate down full ice hockey, 9 years old, 10 years old, whatever it was. And and just to challenge himself, he'd skate around the net once before he'd score.
Wow.
So he'd go down and skate around.
Show off.
and then I'm like, I'll never forget, like at 14, I'm like, hey, where's Magic Burke? And like, he doesn't play hockey anymore.
Wow.
He just never got better. He was a great 8-year-old and just never became a good 10-year-old. And I think. And I think that like that kind of, I always reflect back on that, because I was the worst player on the ice. Like I was already 3-4 years behind these kids, right? And I'm like, I can hardly stand up on the ice, and I'm watching this kid like, oh my God, that's Wayne Gretzky out there, basically. and then at 14, they're not playing hockey anymore, for whatever reason. But I'm just saying, he's in a really good. It sounds like if you're this parent in Sweden or in Hoboken, this is a great place to be for your kid, because hopefully they're the person that's getting all of the other love from the team and the coaches and the parents. Oh my God, thank God that I don't know, Jan is here. Thank God he's here.
Yes, he saved the game.
And he saved the game. Or get out there and score the game when he goes. So there's so many great attributes to it. I'm not a believer that. I don't think that at this level it's holding anyone back. If it's in the right context and he's getting the right development in there, in the training and the practice and all the other stuff that doesn't include just being on the ice in a game.
Right. And you guys, we have heard this from even, the top NHL players who've been on the show. Being a leader on the team, being a better player on the team is never a detriment to your development.
Yeah, I want to tell the younger side of our audience too, never to underestimate the influence that Magic Johnson had on anybody playing sports in the 1980s with Magic Burke and Magic Mark Johnson. I think we got to start calling you Magic Mike Benelli here, Mike, moving forward.
Magic Mike.
For those who don't know who Magic Johnson is,
Let's be careful of that one.
That's
we're a
Christy
PG.
picked up on that one. That's why I added his last name.
We're a PG show here.
That's
Magic
right.
Mike Benelli. It's better than Monday morning, Mike. Again, if you don't know who Magic Johnson is, go search Magic Johnson, Los Angeles Lakers. You'll find out. I've got a bunch of notes here already, gang. So when I look at this email, I'm gonna address this now a little more bland. So to the person that wrote the email, I'm not speaking necessarily directly to you here,
right?
But in general here, right? Mike, you made a great quote there of like, to be the best, you got to play against the best. Look, there, as you said, there's some truth to that. I think that sometimes quotes like that are always missing something, and I think that what's missing in that quote is the best competition is yourself. Right. And I think that when you start to address it like, well, I have to be my strongest competitor, that opens up the door for a lot of different things. So one of the first things I want to say here is that if your kid, and this is to everybody, is really excelling under the age of 12 up to the age of 12, fantastic. My question always is, well, what are they doing away from the rink? What kind of off-ice training are they doing? What kind of studying are they doing? Because in my experience, the kids that separate themselves at the older age, they're not just performing on the ice. This is a character thing. It's what they're doing away from the rink. Are they taking 500 shots a day, forehand and backhand? Are they studying clips? Are they obsessed with the game? My answer to the question is if you want him to get better and playing against better talent is not there, what are you doing at home? And there's a caveat to this. And I wrote this down. And I want to say this again. For the person that wrote the email, I'm not saying this directly at you. It's a question that always comes up with me when I get emails. You're asking a great question here. Great question. Is your kid aware that you're asking this question? Does the kid want to know the answer to this question? Is it even on his wavelength of, hey, I'm really good and I want to be better, right? And it always makes me think about this because I get asked questions from parents a lot, and I'll ask back, what does your kid think? And I'm often, I don't want to use the word disappointed. I'm astonished. They haven't spoken to their kid about it, which tells me that this is more your dream than your kid's dream at the moment. It doesn't mean your kid doesn't love hockey. It doesn't mean your kid's not excelling. But your kid has to be involved in that conversation, and your kid has to be the one that steps up to do the training. Now, again, we always say you can cultivate it. You can tell your kid, hey, listen, why don't we set up a training gym? Why don't we do this? And if they go, yeah, that's awesome, now you're in the right realm. If they go, no, I don't want to practice. All right. Yeah, disappointing. Don't get me wrong, but that's their answer at this point. The other thing about 12 is a really interesting age. I'm going to quote, we don't usually do this. I'm going to quote Spit and Chicklets. and I'm going to do it because Whitney said something really profound. He said, everyone's great at hockey until, and I'm drinking and, other extracurricular activities play into the game. I'm making that PG for everybody, but your kid is going to go through puberty. Let's just say it. All right. And there's going to be distractions. That's when you find out how serious they are about the game. And I think if you rush a 12-year-old into that environment, there are some benefits, but there are some real problems that can come with that. So I always say, what is your kid doing away from the rink? A 12-year-old, you got to meet them where they're 12. And to the person who wrote this email, I sincerely hope, and I believe actually, your kid is the kid that's working away from the rink. There are so many videos, and I'm gonna use this example of Connor McDavid, of Sidney Crosby, at young ages, just training away from the rink. There are especially Connor McDavid, just videos of him at 12, 13, 14, training and training and training and training. And him talking about how he loves to train. He doesn't understand how other kids play video games when they could be training. That's the mindset that makes him who he is. It's not just his talent. All right. And again, I'm using myself. I loved training. I mean, I created an off-ice training company. That's what I do for a living because I love training so much, right? But I wanted to do that. It wasn't my dad or my mom that wanted me to do that. All right, so I wrote those things down. And then the last thing I wrote here before I throw it back to the group here is, this is a resource question. It's like, what are the resources that I have to make my hockey skills better, to make my hockey experience better? And look, I'm going to quote Tony Robbins now, right? It's a quote show. It's not about your resources. It's about being resourceful. You have to create a lot of these opportunities. So find ways off the ice to help your kid develop, whether it's in the gym, whether it's using off ice training, whether it's studying the game, whether you can find coaches in addition to your current coaches to help you out. If you do not have the ability to move up, but I'd also say in closing here that, FOMO is a really real thing. And Kristen,
Sure.
you said at the top, everyone feels it around the globe.
Oh, yeah.
Like your kid's excelling, your kid's getting better. That's what I took away from the email.
Right.
Don't feel like, oh, I have to do these things so he's gonna to make it.
Yeah. You don't want to rush the process. You don't want to rush development. And you think about it, when your kid is scoring goals, blocking shots, being really successful on a team, isn't that a self-motivator?
Yes.
Now, so if you move them into a more competitive environment, are they going to lose that motivation? Are they going to lose confidence? Are you going to miss out on developing that complete player?
Right.
I think you have to be careful about switching and rushing the process.
Right.
You never want to rush the process. As we've talked about so many times before, it's not a race, it's a marathon.
It is.
And it takes time to get there.
But
It's really easy for parents to fall into the trap of, I got to hurry up. I got to push that development along. Don't push it.
Christy, I'm going to say this too, and Mike and I know this. This sounds harsh. I don't mean it to sound harsh.
Right.
If your kid is that good, they will be plucked by your national program.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Like, and I see this in the U.S. all the time. A kid is putting up 100 goals in 20 games at a young age. They are being seen. All right. And I don't mean 6 years old, by the way. All right.
Right.
They'll be plucked. You'll be found if you're having that kind of profound scoring. And I always say, if that doesn't happen, that's okay. There are plenty. Look, Connor Hellebuck, let's talk about him, right? Never played anywhere, right? Until, he was a AA player. USA Hockey gold medal goalie. His path was very unique. And they said it, I never played AAA, right? I just worked hard and I got there. Again, it's a goaltender, but he was plucked at some point because of how he was working. It wasn't because he played for a AAA team. And there's more than one story like that, believe it or not. Mike, I'd love your thoughts on that too. The top talent gets plucked.
Plus, he's a monster. I mean, the guy's a monster.
He's a monster.
He's got the genetic side. Yeah, he is a genetic side.
Everybody's over there like, oh, nobody knows who this kid is. I love it. Keep stopping pucks. Keep playing on the negative 8 team. Yeah, right. And when are you going to be? Let me see your parents. I think so. I think there's so many nuances to this conversation only because of the environment we're getting the question from, because it really is a different environment. Like, this sounds like this player in New England would have been probably moved to 4 different teams by now, like in from 9, 10, 11 years old, because of the hopping around. So it's almost like this is what I see, right? I see a kid that comes from an A program or a AA program, and in 3 years they get so good they want to go to the next level, like the greener grass. And my first initial question usually is, well, how did you get that good? Mm-hmm. Like, why are you breaking the development model you're in because now you think you've outlasted the development model? Maybe the reason why you are this good is because of the model you're in. And I think that's where in Europe we see this, right? Is that the model they're in is the best model for the kids. And they know, and the coaches know, it sounds like they've gotten a handle on this. They know that kids ebb and flow in age groups. And all you're doing is really tweaking that kid to go, okay, he's not going to a different country to play hockey. He's just going to a different team that is allowing him to play with the same level or equivalent players in his group. And I think we in our region rush that. We rush it so much earlier, but we also have it in a way where you don't have, like in Sweden and Norway, they have 1 or 2 options. Like where I live, there's 17 options, and everyone's selling you the same option. In different parts of the world, it's like, oh, okay, you're better now. You're going to go to this team, and then you go back to this team, then you go to this team, then back to this team, or you progress, like Lee's talking about. Then at some point, the national program sees you, and you're showcased in that way. Here, some kids don't even get seen because they've gone to 6 different teams in 6 years. So they've never really gotten a foothold on development. Although they're better than the kids in their age group, there becomes a ceiling that you can't go through because that development ceases to exist anymore.
You know, I'm going to throw like a little monkey wrench into this too. Mike, these are great points. And again, I want to say what you said again. Different countries have much different development models, right? Like so if you're in America or Canada right now, drastically different, right? But here's a little monkey wrench. I talked about being resourceful, right? I'm looking back at my own development and the process that I had to do. One of the things that I did that had massive impacts on my ability, and again, I don't know if they have this in Sweden, but I would go to open hockey sessions with the adults. All right. As young as I think 12 or 13 years old. I really mean that. And when I got out there, I was playing with men, I was playing with adults, and I learned a tremendous amount just from playing with these guys. I also had the place to try new moves and to try new things. I can, this is going to sound funny to the younger kids, but you know, I remember the first time like really working on toe drags, which at the time I played was not
not a thing.
It was not like a big, that was a huge move when I played. Like that was a Michigan level move when I played. I mean that. And I remember trying it open hockey and failing and failing and failing. And then I pulled it off against the best player on the ice.
Wow.
And I remember like thinking it took everything I had to do that, but I did it. And man, did that build my confidence, because not only did I do it to someone who was like 21 years old when I was 15, but now I'm playing against people my age again. So I always say open hockey is one of the best resources you can have if you can get in. Now, the other side of that is this, and I'll thank my dad for this one. You know, I didn't go to open hockey at 15 as a cocky 15-year-old ready to show up all these college guys and adult guys, right? I was told to be very respectful, and I introduced myself to these guys. I made it apparent how much I love the game, you know, and I told them like, I'm trying to learn. And when one of them would do something amazing out there, I'd go up to them and I say, how'd you do that? Can you show me how to do that? Those guys adopted me. They wanted me to learn, and they taught me a lot of things. And here's the other thing too. They were not light on me. They had no problem throwing me into the boards. It was funny to them, right? Just they're way bigger than me at that age, right? So, you know, that's what I mean about being resourceful and finding ways to teach yourself the game. Now, again, I don't know what Swedish hockey. I'm sure there's open hockey there as well. All right, but there's 2 points here: finding the places, finding the access to learn, and then I'm going to say it again. My attitude, my professionalism, helped me out. Right? People wanted to teach me because I clearly wanted to learn. I think that's a skill we're not talking about enough, actually. Now that I bring it up, right? Like coaches want to coach. Right? If you come up to me now if I'm out there playing and a kid comes up to me and wants to learn, man, I want to teach you. And I'm not just talking about coaching right now, right? You want to send the elevator back down. So maybe find those people, right? Or find those opportunities for you to get on the ice and try some things, right? Because that's a really safe environment. Now, the caveat to this, right, Christy, this is where I know you want to talk about this, is that I think there's a lot of people that go, well, what about just playing up to the next age?
Yes,
level? My kid's 12. Maybe he should be playing 16U. There's a lot of thoughts on that, because here's the thing. That's not a definite no. All right. It's also not a definite yes.
Right. Carefully weigh this one, because let's talk about this. Moving up, like 9-year-old to 11-year-old. There's differences on many levels, sizes, the physicality of the game. It's a physical game. You know, is your kid going to be able to withstand the physical advancement of that game emotionally, mentally? I mean, he's going to be with older kids. That's another factor. Are they mature enough? You have to really carefully weigh playing up, because playing up is not always all that it's cracked up to be. You know, you might feel a sense of pride. Oh, look at my 9-year-old. He's playing with a bunch of 12-year-olds. Okay. But is he an impact player? Maybe at age 9, with kids his own age, he can be an impact player, but you move him up, all of a sudden he's not.
Right.
He's a follower. He's not a leader. And that could maybe set them back developmentally. I think you have to be careful.
Yeah, there's so many pieces to this too about playing up, right?
Let's dissect.
and because it's like, you know, I remember as an admissions director for a long time at the high school, prep school level, I used to have a lot of parents that would like, oh, well, like my son can come here and play as a 9th grader. and blah, blah, blah. I think, no problem. I go, yeah, but I mean, I said, do you know what 12th graders do in the locker room? Like, do you know what they
Exactly.
talk about? Like, do
Mhm.
you know what kind of life a 10th grader is different than 11th and 12th grader? And it's the same
Mhm.
thing with a phenom, mite playing squirt or squirt. Like if
Mhm.
your squirt's playing with peewees and maybe those peewees, maybe those 12U kids are getting phones for the first time and your son doesn't know what a phone is, or like there's all kinds of pieces in the development. You talked about maturity, but it's
Mhm.
also just the fact of, it's what I find a lot is sometimes these kids have like this sense of entitlement, and the
Mm.
parents, because they're playing up, and me as an organizer with boards and trying to make these policies, I'm always I fall on the side of, if a parent is threatening you to play up or they're going to leave, then have them leave. That's how I look at it. I'm like, because they're
I
going to leave
agree.
anyway, because
Yeah.
you're never going to be good. Like,
Mhm.
if that's the threat, or the
Mhm.
question might be, hey, what are you going to do for my 9-year-old right now? Because they're they're the best player on the ice. We
Mhm.
feel the only way they're going to develop is to play up, and then
Mhm.
I can rebut with that is well, okay, what about if we did these 9 things? Like maybe
Mhm.
this is how you get your player better. And Lee alluded to it earlier. It can't just be about the 60 minutes between the boards. There's all other aspects of development that can
Yes.
happen for your kid, and within your own age group,
Mhm.
you can build those pieces out. Is it challenging? Is it hard?
Mhm.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is it easy to say, "Oh, best player, move them up"? It is
Right.
easy, but there's so many there's so many parts, especially in small organizations, right? You move that kid up, and now you just took a roster spot from a kid you're not
Mhm.
getting back later, and then all of a sudden, now the next year you go, "Oh, we
Mhm.
thought we had 12 kids, now we only have 11." And those 2
Yeah.
kids are leaving anyway. Now you don't have a team at 12. Like, so it's all these things that like
Mhm.
program directors need to look at. But I think from the pure standpoint of watching a player, and I will say this with a lot of confidence, I probably had thousands of these conversations because of all the
Mhm.
programs I've been with. There's always a big percentage of kids that want to play up,
Yeah.
Right.
especially when 8U hockey came around, where the American development model started mandating cross ice hockey. All these little 8-year-old parents want their kids to play up because they need them to play full ice, and the only way to get the full ice is to play a year up. And so we would have all these conversations about the development, and more times than not, that player that demanded something from that piece were players that weren't with you anyway the next year. So don't like, so A, if you're an organizer or a parent or somebody that's running a team, don't fall for it. And if you're a parent that thinks your player has to play up, maybe do your parent checklist and do your pros and cons, like Christy said, and say, okay, pros, he gets to play above his weight. Cons, the kids in the locker room are not going to like him because they think because he's a little kid that just took their friend's spot and he thinks he's hot crap.
Exactly.
So just be aware of those dynamics and what different age groups have in relation to how they're treated, because that's your responsibility as a parent too, to put them in a good place in the locker room where everybody feels not that they're equal, right, but that everybody feels respected in that environment, and safe, and and that you can trust that your main goal is that the player performs well, gets better, and has a good relationships within the team.
All right, let's do this. Let's put it on the record and let's be clear. Mike Lee, true or false? A younger player has to advance in order to get better. Lee,
What do you mean by advance?
true or false?
No. But what do you
The
mean? Like, when you say advance, what do you mean?
Yeah,
I want to clarify that.
Has to get moved up a
moved up.
level.
Yeah,
So
moved up a
so
level. True or false? Younger player has to be moved up in order to get better. True or
no,
false?
that's false.
False. It's a
Yeah.
myth.
Sorry.
That's
Myth.
an
Just
easy.
making sure I was on the same page.
We are
We're doing we're,
mythbusters on
we're
this
doing
show.
MythBusters today. We're
Yeah.
using everybody else's platforms today. Yeah, it's yeah. I think you're right. It's a myth. Are there exceptions? Like everything else, there always are exceptions. But for the most part, an 8-year-old that wants to play up, and the reason is because they need a challenge. Ah, I buy that very, very little. There are kids, no doubt about it, that they
Right.
probably, you could make a good argument that because of where they are, they're bored playing in that age group. But for the most part, you could find a way around that boredom.
Well,
I
look,
agree.
let's just talk about some of the exceptions, because I think what we're going to find is very few of them have to do with talent,
Mhm.
right? They have to do with
Mhm.
circumstance. So
Mhm.
I can use one from my team that I just coached this year. The roster was short. Okay, 10U team had a short roster. The MITE program had extra kids. We pulled 2 kids up. All right. But that made a lot of sense, right? It was a necessity. We needed to have players to
Okay.
fulfill our roster. These kids showed the talent that they could maybe hang. We had to coach them up. I have to remind myself that those kids were 7 at 10U.
Right.
All right. So there's some challenges that come from that from a coaching standpoint that we have to acknowledge. But okay, we needed to fulfill a roster. We have the players at the younger age to do it. That is a discussion worth having.
Mhm.
Okay. The discussion was not my daughter's good enough to play on this team. That actually never came up. All right. It was we need 2 more players. So that's one. Okay. Another exception, and it's not so much playing up, but it's playing to a higher level. I know a young man who was a 3rd-year squirt. All right, just happened to work that way. He started in squirt early, and I can tell you that he had started to outgrow the talent level of the team he was on. So he moved from a tier 2 team to a tier 1 squirt team.
Mhm.
That is
Mhm.
an appropriate move to me. He made the team. He tried out and he made the team. I don't have a problem with that. And he's playing at a higher level of squirt. That's not necessarily moving up to another age. Okay. Those are the only exceptions that I can think of right now
Mhm.
that make sense. It's really just the one. All right. I think that, the other thing you got to think about, and Mike, you and I know this as coaches. Oh, man, parents, it is a nightmare for
Mhm.
us when one kid moves up or 2 kids
Sure.
moves up, because
Mhm.
now every parent thinks their kid should be moved
Mhm.
up. So I understand why there are some really strict rules
Mhm.
within organizations about you got to play at the level you're at, unless there's an extreme circumstance. All right. And again, look, I would say this too adversely, kind of mildly hypocritically. All right. Let's just do squirt to Pee Wee right now.
Sure.
If there's a squirt player that is scoring 100 goals
Mhm.
and he wants to move up, his parent wants to move up, and it's so obvious that he is or she is light years ahead,
Mhm.
I do think there's a discussion that can happen there. I'm not even saying they should do it,
Right.
but I think there's a discussion because organizations do have a responsibility to develop the players to the best of their ability. All right. Now, there's a lot of things with that. Like, who's the coach? Where's the coach? Do you need a player at that team? I would never move up if you have a great coach. If you have a great, great coach that's really teaching you the game, don't go anywhere, because they're going to learn more from that coach than if they just go against older players. Last thing I'll say on this too,
Mhm.
um, some exceptions to the rule. All
Mhm.
right. Spring hockey, summer hockey. All right. Now, my kids don't play in the spring, but if you do spring hockey or summer hockey, that's a time to maybe toy with this a little bit, because
Okay.
it's much lighter. It's 10 games,
Mhm.
right? If you feel like you can get your kid into the older, like sometimes spring hockey has broader age levels too, Christy, right? Like, so sometimes they'll put squirt and pee-wees together,
That's true. They
right?
do.
So it's like
Mhm.
now is your chance to kind of test that
Yeah.
out, see how they do against the older kids. All right. Because it can be really intimidating for a kid to be playing up with older kids. This is going
Mhm.
back to the early part of the episode. Have you spoken to your kid about this? Does
Mhm.
your kid want to move up to the upper
Right.
level? All right. Because I know parents that have just thrown their kids to the
Sure.
wolves.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Sometimes they say, well, my kid performed. He was terrified. He was
Yeah.
terrified. Well, that's how you build them. I'm like, that's how you
Right.
prevent burnout, and they quit when they're 16.
Yeah.
All right.
Exactly.
Be just be careful with that is what I'm trying to
Yes.
say.
Be
Well,
very
and
careful.
I think as an organization too, don't you have to really you've got to let go of a player. Like, say there's a player that's a 10U major, right?
Right.
Second year sport, and they're really good. And the inclination is you're moving them up to 12U because you don't want them leaving to go to another program's better 10U team. And I think you really got to weigh that. Like I don't think moving up is the answer. I think going to the age that the player's in at a better program
Right.
for the player is better. I think. But again, these are things that you have to struggle with when you're in it, depending on the size of your organization, where you have to say, oh, okay,
Mhm.
I'm gonna go against what I really think because I don't want to lose the player. And I will say from experience that a lot of times it actually goes the other way. It's let the player go.
Right.
When they get to the right level and they feel like they've satisfied the level they're at, and your team ends the next year is better, they come back. And I so a lot of times to what Lee was saying earlier, just look at it from an organization's perspective, because there's a domino effect. When you do it for one, you have to do it for all, or you have to fight the fact that you didn't do it for all. And then you have, like, I've had situations where, parents have had kids in like just for this year, right? Say you had a 2019 and a 2018, or a 2017 and a 2018. The 2017 this year would be a squirt minor, and then the 2018 would still be a mite. But you might say, the parents are like, well, we can't swing this. Like, this is impossible. So can the player play up? Because the player obviously can't play down, right? So that is something you have to think about. You weigh, and you say, okay, well, this family, they wouldn't even be able to play the sport or logistically make this work. So there's always circumstances, but I think the overall goal is, well, two things. If you're a non-parent right now listening to this, and you're planning on having kids in the future, don't have your kids so close. You got to spread them out. And then you don't have to worry about it. then you don't have to worry about it. Get the hockey calendar out and figure it out. And don't have kids during like spring breaks and things like that. But on the other side of this, if you're looking at the big picture, just understand like that organizations have to look at this as well for the health of their organization, their team.
Right. And again, I go back to, I know it's so easy to want to hit the gas pedal when you see that your kid is excelling, right? But then I go back to asking that question, what's wrong with your kid being the star, and let that star shine? There's nothing wrong with that. And teams need kids who are talented and can be leaders and can challenge the other kids on the team. There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, Christy, I'll tell you this, that the moments that I had where I decided that this game was going to be my life, right? And I hope you know what I mean by that. We're on that team that you just spoke about. When I was fully confident and fully into it, that's when the dream really grows, right? When I was struggling, it's not that I didn't have the dream, but it's tough. it's a grind at that point.
Yeah.
The cultivation of the dream comes from those moments.
Yeah.
Right. I want to say these two things before we close this out too. It's a great question from this person. I really hope we've given you some things to think about here, obviously. But this is my promise as a coach, right? And I'm going to say this very, very clearly. If I see a kid that is excelling so much, and I truly believe they are ready to move up to the next age level, I will say something. And I have. And I'm going to tell you all listening, that is insanely rare that I feel that way. Okay? It's insanely rare, because I think your kid needs to develop at the age they are at for a reason. Okay? It is so rare. All right? But it's not impossible. All right? And I'm going to echo again what Mike said too. It is very hard for us as coaches to make lots of exceptions, because it's a great way for people to leave your organization as well.
Yeah.
There have to be standards. All right? And my hope is if we move a kid up, most people are going to look and be like, oh yeah, well, that kid had to move up. That kid obviously has to move up, right? It's not someone on the fringe. It's not someone on the bubble. It's someone that is so good at that age and they have the maturity that we feel that this is going to make sense. And we still may not do it. All right. So just some things to think about, with that. The last thing I want to tap on here before we end this, I always like to bring this up. He wrote early in the letter, like many kids, he dreams of becoming an NHL player. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. All right. Those dreams, I always say those dreams are so important.
Yeah.
I've always said to parents, you do not have to support the dream, but you have to support the right to have a dream. All right. Do not tell your kid you'll never make the NHL. Nobody makes the NHL. There's no point. Don't take the dream away from their kid. We all know the numbers and the chance of that happening. But if you take the dream away, why would they go through anything to struggle and try and be better? You are teaching your kid not to try. when you tell them not to strive for their dream. You can tell them there are no guarantees. You can tell them it's insanely hard. You can tell them it's going to take an unbelievable amount of work and you may not make it. You can tell them all those things, but also tell them it is worth trying. It is worth giving your all, because if you have a dream, you should pursue it. All right. I think the mistake that was made with a whole generation of kids was they were told you can accomplish whatever you want. And that's what they were told. All right. Again, you can pursue to accomplish whatever you want. There's no guarantees, but that's your right to try. You will get so much further trying than if you don't. All right. Christy wanted to be on the news as a young kid. Christy, I am so sure as a young woman, they told you there's no way it's going to happen for you. Right?
I did. My guidance counselor said that you will never see this happen, because kids from our part of the neck of the woods never got to be television news anchors. That's what we were told.
I have walked the streets of Syracuse with Christy, and you cannot do it without someone stopping. Going, are you Christy Casciano on the news?
Yeah.
Mike, you were told you'll never have a life in hockey.
It just motivated me to go chase that dream.
Right. Well, I bet you had some support, right, from people telling you to chase it, right? Mike and I were told there's no future in hockey for you. I was told there's no future. You're never going to do anything in the game. Well, luckily, fortunately, I had parents who really supported me pushing through with that, and I had good people, right? So I just always have to say that, like, good on this guy for saying my kid has a dream to play in the NHL.
I love that.
All right, he didn't hide that, right? And no one's judging you if your kid doesn't make the NHL.
Exactly.
Nobody judges you for that.
Or the PWHL.
Yeah, thank you, Christy. Very good point. Wherever you want to be in the Olympics, whatever. All right. Any final thoughts before we close this out? It's been a great episode.
Yeah, I do. So every hockey season, you are going to see, late bloomers, early stars, and everything in between. You as a parent need to just step back and look at your kid. Are they happy every time they step on the ice, eager to play hockey, can't wait to play? Then you're on the right path. Trust your gut, trust your child, trust the process, and let them have fun.
Yeah, ditto. I think it's just so hard. It is really difficult not to chase and look over the fence and do all this kind of stuff. It's really just really enjoy the process and the opportunity to watch your kids play, and it'll take them where they want to go. And you know what? There's going to be some that are going to go to play professionally. Great. But the bulk of us aren't, and you just got to make sure they're still good people, and they remember that their youth hockey experience and sporting experience was fun, and hopefully they're going to pass that on as well and move on to the next generation of hockey players. So I don't know, it is a very difficult, and especially we're doing this at a really hard time of the year for hockey families, and with tryouts and ID skates and everybody pulling the superstars in different directions. Again, just step back, look at the big picture, look at your kid, and I think have a conversation with them as well.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll close by saying this. I can speak for Mike and I as coaches here. Christy, I'll speak for you as a parent because I know you so well. It is my sincerest goal and responsibility to want your kid to succeed. I take a tremendous amount of pride and put a tremendous amount of time in my coaching because I want your kid to get better. That's always the win for me. So if you have a coach that's doing that, it's dedicated to your kid, and a coach that clearly wants them to get better, you won lottery a bit here, because I can also say that is not, unfortunately, that's not across the board, what I just said. There are coaches that only care about winning. Okay, at 8U, which is
but there are less of those. There's very few, and I think there's like the bad apples of parents, right? Not every parent's great. There's a bunch that are that you'd rather not have a conversation with. But I think
that was nicely put, Mike.
But
Magic Mike. Yeah.
But for the like to Lee's point, I mean the vast majority of coaches love being out there and working with your kids and want to see you get better. And
don't forget
the few that don't, they are who they are. Christy, we've had many episodes on buyer beware and know what you're getting into before that happens. Find great people that like your kids and want to teach. That's it. Doesn't matter if they played in the NHL or played rec hockey or never laced on a pair of skates. Just find people that really care about your kids and want to see them develop, and find a coach that says, like, I don't want to be your last coach. That's it.
I love that.
If you want to write us a letter like this and have us talk for 45 minutes about a topic of your choosing, please feel free to email us at team@ourkidsplayhockey.com or find the link accompanying this episode in the description. Let us know your name and where you're from. Sincerely, folks, we love getting these emails. We want this to be a community-led show, and it really is. So thank you for that. But that's the episode. For Christy Cash, Anna Burns, and Mike Benelli, I'm Lee Elias. We will see you on the next Our Kids Play Hockey. Have fun, everybody. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey. Make sure to like and subscribe right now if you found value wherever you're listening, whether it's a podcast network, a social media network, or our website, ourkidsplayhockey.com. Also, make sure to check out our children's book, When Hockey Stops, at whenhockeystops.com. It's a book that helps children deal with adversity in the game and in life. We're very proud of it. But thanks so much for listening to this edition of Our Kids Play Hockey, and we'll see you on the next episode.